Joe Biden and the Democrats never let a crisis go to waste. So this weekend, he used the destruction of the storms as an opportunity to push his climate agenda.
The intensity of the weather across the board has some impacts as a consequence of the warming of the planet and the climate change. The specific impact on these specific storms, I can't say at this point. I'm going to be asking the EPA and others to take a look at that. But the fact is that we all know everything is more intense when the climate is warming. Everything.
Joining me now to react, Douglas Murray, the author of Madness of the Crowds. In a way, Douglas, I guess Democrats have been honest about their philosophy. Never let a crisis go to waste. Whether or not that's a mass shooting, you stand on the graves of children and push for gun control. A pandemic, you push your policies. A tornado, you push for climate change policies.
You know, I can save President Biden the effort of having to ask any of the so-called experts on this. There is abundant evidence that there has been no change in the frequency of tornadoes in the United States of America in recent decades. That's not my view. That's a view of, for instance, The Economist magazine that wrote this only recently. The Economist is not a far-right publication. It's a center-left publication. It was clear about that because the data shows that there is no significant increase, no change in the number of tornadoes that have affected the United States in recent decades. I'll give you another stat that, again, the Democrats never want to dwell on this because they've forgotten that there have always, sadly, throughout human history, been what we used to call natural disasters. Natural disasters now are used by Democrats and people on the climate left in particular as just another opportunity to push a particular political ideology. There has, for instance, there's actually been a reduction since 1900 in the number of hurricanes that make landfall in the US, a reduction since 1900. When was the last time anyone heard that from a Democrat or official? All it is, so we always hear remorselessly, whether it's a fire, whether it's a hurricane, a tornado, all we hear remorselessly is, this is why we've got to do more on climate change.
You know, Douglas, and by the way, the president really wasn't even the worst offender of this. Just take a look at a quick tweet by celebrity Mark Ruffalo. He said, "This is what climate catastrophe looks like. It's only going to get worse from here. Now is the time to fight for our suffering and despairing youth." You know, Douglas, I look at this. Your book, by the way, is Madness of the Crowds. And crowds can go mad, but most definitely when they're driven to panic and fear by their would-be leaders. Yes. And pandemic and gun violence and climate change. How does a crowd not go mad when fed this kind of fear?
That's right. Well, look at that tweet you just quoted, our despairing youth. Why would youth in America be despairing? What have they got to despair about? I mean, compared to any generation in American history before this one, they've got less than anyone to despair about. If there are despairing youth, and we discussed this before, the stats show that significant swathes of American young people are indeed in a kind of panic because they've been told by the adults to panic. They've been told they're all going to burn to death or get blown away. This has to be addressed. You can't have despairing youth. You've got to get the facts to the young.
Douglas Murray, always wise. Thank you so much.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.